there's what? How many of you?
There's 8 of us.
And you're not the youngest.
No, I'm the 5th.
And so there's,
So it's like, So my sister found out about me when she was in law school. My cousin told her, like, just out of the blue. And my sister's like, wait, what? Like, I have a sister? What are you talking about? She's like,
because the sister that found you told the cousin, or how?
No, my cousin told my oldest sister about me, and then she went and asked my dad first. And was like, is it true? Like, there's a...
Oh, you're saying before you
before they even, that was like years before, because they were looking for me for a few years after they found out. And
so at that point, your cousin was like, I don't know if this is true, it's rumor. Or...
Yeah, no, my cousin knew for sure.
Okay.
She's older. She's like 8 years older than my oldest sister.
Wow.
So she is like older, so she knew.
Because it's one family, everyone has the same parents, and then you're finding, your older sister's finding out you have a younger sister that was given up. That would be wild.
Yeah, so she was...
And there's 3 kids after you, so that doesn't... Yeah, that would be...
Yeah. I think that was the hardest thing to solve. It still is, like, hard for me. Like, how come I was the only one that you didn't want to...
Because it's usually the oldest, the youngest, the only child, something like that. But the fact that there's 3 kids after you, and you're so close in age.
My next youngest sister is a year and a half younger than me. Like, we're all, like, so close in age. I don't know. To me, that's still hard, and something I haven't really talked to my mom about, because she's not emotional. But we did, when she came to Utah, we did sit down, just me and her, and talk, and she told me the story. She told me, like, my dad wasn't around, and she was sleeping on the floor at my aunt's house with my 4 older siblings, and her dad was already upset, like, that she kept having kids and wasn't married, and
with the same man though.
Yeah, it was the same man. So she was like, I can't bring another kid, So she said she just, like, felt like it was the best thing to do, and so she...
So was the rumor premature true?
I don't know. I asked her and she said no. Yeah. But
it wasn't. Well, I don't know why but it wasn't.
I don't know. Yeah. And then I asked my aunt too, her sister, because I was like, do you know if I was or wasn't?
So I'm trying to understand where your adopted mom got that from. I think it's just more to make you feel like she saved you.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. But rewind back. So when when your cousin tells your sister, like, hey, by the way, you have a sister that was adopted, your sister's like, what the crap, and asks your dad.
She asked my dad first, and my dad's like, yeah, it's true. I didn't know until, like, later. Like, my mom didn't tell him until later, and...
Like, how do you hide that?
Yeah. She's very secretive. She would have gone to the grave. No one would have known. Like, if my cousin hadn't told my sister, there's no way that they would have even known. So then my sister went and asked my mom, and she said my mom's eyes just got huge. We all have these huge eyes. So she just, like, got huge and was like, you found her?
Aww.
Like, she was like, no. Like, but it's true. Like, there's another one. She's like, yeah. And she didn't give her any details. She didn't tell her anything, really. And so then my older sister told all my siblings. So the sister that found me is the one that I'm Irish twins with. So we're 11 months apart, and she's the one that found me. But, yeah.
So they came to Utah.
They came to Utah.
Met some of the family.
Yeah, they met Kathy.
Her adopted sister.
My adopted sister that we're super close to. That's the only.
They met my mom.
They met. Oh yeah, they met.
They went to mom's house.
Yeah. We did go to Heber, and they met some of the Heber family. But that's all for my family. They only met Kathy.
Did they say anything, like, did you tell them about your upbringing?
No. I didn't, and my mom didn't ask. So it was kind of, she didn't ask me any questions. She was more like, if I'll tell you, all that I can, or all that, she'll get emotional and she has to leave. She has to go.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
it is a lot.
And so I try to give her time, you know, and so yeah, the visit was okay. She didn't try to spend too much time with me. I don't know what that reason was, but she wanted to be in her hotel room a lot, and so
I kind of think it's just like the pain and the regret. And
for me, I understand that, but then at the same time, like, this is like an opportunity that a lot of people don't get, you know. And she's older, and like, at that point, I wasn't sure what kind of relationship I would have with my siblings, with her. So I wasn't sure, like, oh, is this going to be, you know, like, we know now and that's it? Like, there's no relationship.
But you have a good relationship.
I have a good relationship with most of my siblings. I have a sister that lives in Houston. We live in San Antonio, Texas, so she's only 3 hours away. We see her often and talk to her. And
do you feel like being around her, or like certain family members, you're just like, there's just parts of you that just feels connected without,
for sure,
there's so many years that have gone by, but even with her older sister, her oldest, Abby, my oldest niece, it's so weird because they have like, there's certain things that they do that are the same, or it's, genes are very interesting.
It was easier to connect with them than it has been with my mom. Because my mom's, I mean, there's so much there.
And you guys are all very driven.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, that's one thing that I thought was interesting is like, from all your mom's kids, like, you very much like follow that.
Yeah, which is interesting because they grew up very poor. They didn't have a lot, and they lived with my grandpa in a small house, and they're all college educated, all have careers, like, very, like, my mom made sure, like, they were gonna be good in life, like, gonna, you know, do well in school and not get into drugs and all that stuff that was going on around them. So they all have, my brothers have beautiful families, and so it's interesting because we grew up, I grew up, my adopted family, like, very, very well off, and my parents could care less about our grades, about if we went to college, if we wanted to go to college, like.
And when you say the Utah family, there's a lot of the kids that actually struggled a lot. And I think that's a difference too. It's like the thing, small house, living at your grandparents' house. I think it's your mom or the parents were very loving to them. And that was,
my mom, they knew, like, they weren't going to step out of line. And they all have a very good relationship with my mom, and, like, just very, like, they knew what she expected of them, and she kept them in line, and she loved them. And so that, I mean, and my parents, you know, they gave us financially what we needed, but they didn't really care about. So a lot of my siblings, I think me and one of my brothers, who's my parents' biological son, we both have college degrees. My sister Kathy does too. She recently got hers, but my other siblings don't have degrees. They don't really have, like, real careers. So that's a big difference because we grew up in such a wealthy area too. Like, Utah is, I mean, Highland is very wealthy. So we went to, like, a really nice high school.
What surprises me the most is the childhood that you had and the way you are as a, like, when you just meet Chrissy, you're just thinking, like, she had, like, great parents, the biggest self-esteem, like, she's so great at everything or whatever. So I think the way you pour into your children and everything, you would never, you just would not know that you never had that. You know, because you pour, like, you just pour so much into them.
And I think because of how I grew up, I wanted my kids to have a relationship with me that I wanted when I was a kid. But Ane's the same way because he wasn't close to his adopted parents. He was very close to his birth mom, and so we both wanted that for our kids, like, to be that person they can come to for anything. We never had that, like, when we, you know, getting married when you're young, because I was 23, he was 25 when we got married, like, getting married young and, like, struggling financially, and we're both going to school and working, and sometimes you need help financially. We didn't have that. We just we had to make it work. We didn't have anyone to lean on. We kind of just, struggled through it. And I think that's what made us closer.
Yeah.
And like we understood that from each other.
2 seconds. At least the children are not here. We're going to start it. What's the time?
11:30.
Okay.
These things happen. Anyways, so I think that's what. Oh.
Drink your water. All right.
Anyways, so I think that's what's helped us as parents is like we want to make sure our kids had the childhood that we didn't have. And for me especially, I don't expect much for my kids. Like I want them to be responsible adults, but I want them to be kids.
Yeah.
And so first of all, I didn't really have friends growing up. I like want my kids to have those relationships, go play with their friends, go, be kids. But
you and Madonna are very present. I think that's my favorite thing about you guys is it's not, you could just be in your room doing whatever, but it's like you're not watching them play, it's you guys against them and games and whatever it is. Like it could be the silly videos or whatever it is, you're just part of everything that they do. You help them with their homework, you're making their meals, you always have fun things planned for the weekend, Yeah. I'm like, I want to be a kid and be adopted by you sometimes. Like, let me rewind it.
We're not adopting you.
Dang it.
Sorry.
Dang it.
No, but I think that's, we want that as, before we got married, we talked about that. Like just being, and we never had that role model. Usually you have a parent that you can look up to that's like, I want to be like this parent. Like, we didn't have that. We were kind of like, well, let's do the opposite of what our parents did, like, and be that for our kids. So.
Because I feel like, I guess going back to what I was saying, you just don't see the pain. Like there's a lot of people who are raising their kids, and a lot of times it's kind of like their kids are dealing with the trauma that they've dealt with. And I think you guys do a good job of like just that you leave that behind.
There's still trauma. There's still pain.
Of course. It's a healing process.
Yeah, it's definitely a process. But yeah, I think we try to, let them.
Did meeting your birth family affect any type of relationships with your adopted family?
It did at first. One of my brothers were super close, and he was quite upset about it because he was like, you don't need more family, you don't need siblings, you already have siblings. Like, he didn't understand.
Because he doesn't have a desire to.
He doesn't have a desire at all.
I always think that's interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was. I think it's interesting that they don't want to, but I understand it too. Because after you've been adopted and you feel that rejection from your adopted parents, like you already automatically feel rejected from your birth family because you were given away. Like you already feel that abandonment, and then you are adopted to a family that isn't loving. You don't feel like you belong or that they love you, so it's like a second rejection.
Yeah.
And then you go find your birth family and feel that again.
Yeah.
I think that's why.
Maybe it's a way of protecting themselves.
Yeah, it's a protection, yeah. And that was something I worried about too, because I was like, could I deal with another? And I not necessarily feel that from my birth mom, but do in a way, because we still, even after we've known each other for 5 years now, it's still not the relationship I wish it was.
Is there any added pain from meeting them, or was it more, because I'm sure there's parts where it was healing, but like you said, parts of it is like.
We had a family reunion that same year in 2018 so I met all my brothers, all their wives, all their kids and everyone. That was hard.
Yeah.
Because we were all playing a game and they know each other. It's like it's kind of like going into like your in-laws house, family, like meeting your in-laws. Like I felt so disconnected and out of place.
Yeah.
That was hard because.
What about, because you and I have talked about this, what about just because being black in a white community is a lot different than being black in a black community. Yes. And so do you feel like, because you'll get comments like, oh, you're not black enough, or you don't know this, or like, what was that experience for you?
it's still like my sister is like that all the time. Like my birth sister, she bought me this soul food cooking book. It's like, because the first time I had grits and collard greens and all that stuff was when I met them. Like, I'm like, I don't.
It's a different culture.
It's completely different culture than growing up in a white family. And so she was like, you gotta start cooking. And I'm like, but I didn't grow up like that. Like, I grew up with white parents. I don't. And there's like certain things they say. Yeah. It's like, I'm like, I don't know what that is. Like your kitchens, like your hair's in the back, like different things. I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying. Like it, so that culturally was hard too. Like, and even when I'm around like a group of black people, I feel so uncomfortable. Even to this day, like, can they tell that I don't belong? Yeah. Like you just feel like a sense of, like, I still feel that sense of where do I belong? Really, because I don't belong with white people. But I don't really belong with them because I grew up with a white in a white society. You're too white and the black. Exactly. Too black for the 100%. So it's like even now, like being in Texas, like we're around more black people. I'm still like, like, can they tell that I didn't grow up in a black household? Like it's.
You're not the only one. I've discussed this with like even some of my siblings too.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling. It's
one of my sisters growing up wouldn't even when after high school and we started having like black friends and stuff, she was just like so intimidated to date a black guy, and I was like, what? You know, but it is true because it's a cultural difference too, and you already feel like white people accept you because they're like, you're one of us because we only see you as white in that sense growing up, you know?
And you're like the token black friend.
You're the token black friend, but you still are not, you're still different and they don't, I don't know, it's that part.
It's messy in your head is the thing, is I'm like, I always wonder if they can see. Yeah. Like you know, I'm black, like I know I am, but like, can they see I'm uncomfortable, or I don't know. It's
well, there's comments too, so you're just kind of like, okay, I don't know.
Exactly. Like, how am I supposed to act? I don't know. I always tell my sister, well, I can thank your mom for that. Yeah. Like, I tell you, it's not, I mean.
It's interesting because you're, with my adoption, it's like culture, it's two different types of culture. You know what I mean? So for you, I used to be like, oh, you're lucky because you don't have to necessarily have to learn language and food, and foods are different, right?
Foods are different.
It's just two different things.
And
but at the
language
end,
is a little different too.
That's
like,
true.
Things that they say is like, I don't know that word. Like, what does that mean? You know, it's
culture is so different, but culture is still the same thing that we lose. We lose culture, we lose identity within the adoptions.
Yeah, for sure.
That I don't think people really think about before adopting.
No, it's that look at me and my black baby thing. And
what would you say is like one of the biggest misconceptions
of adoption? I think it's that the savior complex really is like you're being saved from something, because that's something that was shoved down my throat constantly. Is like, we saved you, like you owe us. And my mom always acted that way. You owe me. And I remember right before I got married, she's like, I was living with my parents, my dad lost his job, I was paying rent to help them pay their mortgage, and my mom kept constantly trying to kick me out for who knows what, just because. And I remember talking to her and I was like, what more do you want from me? I've given you everything. Like, I raised your kids. Yeah. I've given everything I possibly can. I don't know why you still don't love me, don't want me to, you know, it's still making my life difficult. And she's like, I want you to list everything that you've done for me. And I'm like trying to listen. I'm like listing all these things. She's like, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. That's not good enough.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
And
this is like right before I got married.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, what else do you want from me? Yeah. Like, I honestly cannot give you anything more than I have. Like, it was always that, like, I gave you a house, I gave you a place to live, I saved you from, no one wanted you. It's
transactional.
Yeah.
It's not
yeah, exactly. It's not love. It's something that's not. And even after that, I was still trying. Like, I'm not one to give up easily. And and failure. So I constantly tried, even as an adult, for that relationship.
Now that you're like moved on and married, have your own children, are you more at peace with that relationship, or is it more?
It's taken a few years. I could say now that I'm at peace with it. Like it is what it is. I can't do it because emotionally I'm not strong enough to deal with the abuse, and that's what when my dad asked me about it, why I don't call my mom and all these things, I tell him like emotionally I'm not healed enough to be able to take it because she has those outbursts and she'll just like make you feel like nothing. Like, and because I emotionally still let her do that to me, I'm not going to put myself in the position to let her do that. And so that's
it's that inner child in you that still, like, no matter what, still wants to be loved.
Yeah. And it's hard. And then you think, like, I don't understand how people can say I love you and not show it. Like, my mom could say I love you and then punch you in the arm the next second, you know, or like pull your hair. Like, it's, to me, I'm like, it's not love.
Have you ever asked her, or do you even know how her upbringing was or anything?
Yeah, her mom was very much like her.
See,
her mom was nasty. She would call us the N-word.
Oh my gosh.
She lived with us for a little while, and we used to go up and like play with her false teeth, and she kept all this food under her bed, and we used to, like, she thought we were the devil. Like, she literally said, like, you guys are the devils. Like, your mom is the way she is because of you guys. Because my mom was always in bed. She was not there. She was in bed. I think she had a pill problem. Now looking back, it's like...
You're like, that makes sense.
She was on a lot of pills. But, like, her mom was abusive to her, too. Would, like, punch her and do stuff to her. So
it's kind of like the thing is, like, it's a ripple effect.
Yeah, it's a
cycle, and you got to give grace to yourself because you literally could be that. It's very normal. Yeah. Like, oh, that's how my dad was. That's how my mom is. And I think, like, you and Donnie both are like, you stop certain cycles that have happened to you guys. And I think I feel like this is part of why it's important to share stories like this, because we're definitely not the only ones with terrible adoption experiences, you know? Yeah. And I think it's more of just people, like, leaning into more healing and, like, knowing that you're not what your mom says about you, you know? And just, like, working on that self-esteem to pour into yourself.
Yeah.
But when it comes to adoption, what do you think is something that should be required of the adopted people?
I think they need to do more, like, mental health checks. Because my mom, she could give the best interview. Like, anyone would give her the job. But mentally she wasn't, and why let her adopt so many? Like, after she had my younger sister, I was like, okay, she'll probably be done. Then she adopted my two younger brothers, and now I look at my two younger brothers and I feel sad because I wasn't there. I was too old. I got married when my youngest brother was 8, and they didn't have anyone. Like, we were all, you know, grown.
And then they become the stereotypical
and they
people
became,
in the system.
and that's exactly, and they became that because they didn't have anyone. And so that makes me the saddest, is like, why, just because someone has money doesn't mean they can provide everything that's required to raise a child that's productive in society, that doesn't have, I mean, all of my siblings have gone through different things because of our upbringing, and I think they need to do a better check on that. And then you can't just because they have money to purchase these children doesn't mean that they should be, you know. So
what about communities?
The community is, I think it is what it is.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know, because even when I was in Utah as an adult with my kids, it was hard. Abby was picked on at school, and it's gotten better, but it's still not a a place where I would want to raise my kids. I have a really good friend who's black and has a black husband, has black kids.
Yeah,
and
they do.
And they have, their siblings are there too.
Don't you think it's different though when you're going home to your family versus you're a black kid in a white community going home to a family that doesn't look like you? I think when it's your own family, I always say the same. If I was with my Ethiopian parents' family living in Utah, it's completely different. You're going home, you still have the culture, you still have your identity. It's just life once you walk out of those doors, you know? But when it's the other, it's like life and then who you are. Yeah. And it just kind of like can all come crumbling down.
Completely agree. I think that's the biggest thing is like you walk outside, you don't look like anyone, but when you're home, you feel that sense of home, like, oh, look, my parents. And I think for Abby, when she was going through, getting bullied at school and stuff, like I was able to be there and talk to her because I've been through the same thing. But I didn't also want that for her. I'm like, I want to be around, like my kids to see people that look like them. Because I don't know, any kid in Utah, any black kid, you see another black person walking down the street and you're like, oh my gosh, I still do that, like, now, like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one, because everyone wants to feel a sense of belonging.
Yeah, it's the same way with even white people in black communities. I remember in high school, like Callie, our high school best friend, because it was always me and Kid at these parties, and we were always the black kids, and actually people thought I was Indian sometimes, but they talk about black people, and my friend's like, she's black. They're like, oh, we thought you were Indian. So I'm like, excuse me? But I think my friends were so used to me going to like these little events and parties and stuff, and it was just always, I was the black girl or I was the brown girl. And then the one time that Callie came to a party with us, like as we got older, all black people, when I tell you she was so uncomfortable, she was so uncomfortable. And I remember like her and I and Kid having a conversation with her, we're like, this has been our life, Cal. Like, this is literally like this has been, but we have to make it look natural. And it's fine because it's our life, right? But it's been interesting to me to see when the tables turn, how they're like, oh yeah, I don't know how to feel comfortable. Yeah. But it's just like, it's just supposed to be so accepted when it's us in their communities. Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah. So representation definitely matters, I think, no matter where you're from. Yeah. If you could ask your biological mother anything or say anything to her, what do you think it would be?
Oh, I don't know. I've already asked everything.
Yeah, she never said anything.
She can't answer questions. She can't be bothered.
What would you really...
I don't know what I would say to her because... On one hand, I don't want to hurt her. I don't want her to make her feel bad about her decision because at the end of the day, I want to be who I am and where I am at this point. I don't know, I wouldn't know Benoni. I wouldn't have these kids, So for me, I wouldn't change that, and I wouldn't want her to feel bad about that. I would like to know, like, really her perspective of it, like what she really thought.
Because she has a story too, so
she has a story that no one will hear. No one. Nobody will hear that story because she will go to the grave with that story. But we have a decent relationship. Like I can be around her. I still, it's limited. She doesn't like talking on the phone. She doesn't like text. She cannot text. And so it's hard to even have a relationship, and that's why I keep telling my sister. She's like, you should try to build it. And I'm like, it's hard because she lives in Alabama. I live in Texas.
She moved from Utah.
Yeah, I moved from Utah. So I live in Texas, and so how do I have a relationship with her?
No, your mom moved from Utah too.
Oh, my birth mom? I mean, my
adopted mom. Yeah.
My adopted mom lives in Georgia now.
Yeah, she was living in Utah now.
I don't want to have a relationship with her.
Wait, were you talking about
my biological mom? You said biological.
Did I?
Yeah.
I did. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, that would be
my adopted mom, I don't
I completely was thinking, while you were talking, I was thinking the adopted mom. Yeah. Sorry.
I saw my adopted mom a year ago. Because my dad was in the hospital and we didn't think he was going to make it, and I really wanted to see him before. He has cancer. He's not doing well. So I wanted to see him. Even though we don't have the best relationship, I love my dad. Like, I know he's been through a lot with my mom, and it's hard too because he let her do so much to us and just, turned a blind eye, but he was abused as well. So I don't know. My siblings have some of them harder feelings towards him than I do. Anyway, so I did see her when I went to see him, and I had my older brother who lives in Georgia, their biological son. He made sure to be there too, because he's that person for me. So he was there too, so that made it a little easier because his kids were there. I didn't bring my kids because
at
this point, and it was last minute. It was expensive.
Did she ask to see the kids?
She asked nothing about my kids. She didn't ask one thing about my kids. How old they were, how many there were, anything. So that was, that was painful, but not because that's who she is.
Yeah.
All we did was clean the whole time, because if you're not doing something for her, she doesn't want anything to do with you.
Still at this stage.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we cleaned the whole time we were there, and she mentioned how much she misses her worker bees. Me and Kathy.
Wow. It's giving you guys were.
And I was like, yep.
Wow.
And then at one point she did make dinner, and we're sitting there, and you can see when she's about to turn, when she's going from sweet to starting, it's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
So at that point I was like, okay, we gotta go, because we had an early flight. And
has she that you know of ever gotten medical help?
No. She doesn't think anything's wrong with her. She thinks it's everyone else. She doesn't know why none of her kids want a relationship with her. And that's the hardest thing is if I told my dad too years ago, if she would get help, if I could see that she's making progress and trying to better herself and not be this person, then I would be there. Yeah. I would want a relationship with her, but she's not, and she doesn't think that she has a problem, and that's the problem. And so that last year I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm all.
I think you're in a good place in your life.
Yeah.
You are. I think you are. Compared to how far you've come, I feel like you're hard on yourself, but you definitely have overcome a lot of things. Yeah. And I think even with I've met her birth mother and family. I love them, they're amazing. Have not met your adopted mom.
Yeah.
But I think when we spent holidays with her birth mom, and I was just kind of looking back, and I think just from this is my opinion, is I could just see her watching you with the way your kids are, so I'm sure for her it's wow, I gave up. I will say it's a sacrifice. she
sacrificed me.
No, she gave you up for something that she didn't feel like she could take care of you for whatever reason that is, And I think she's looking at you oh wow, she's married and has these beautiful kids, and you're a great human, And I think that's probably a lot for her, and I think I feel like being around her, she sees that, and I feel it's beautiful in that sense.
Yeah.
She just has an emotionally. She is very.
She's very.
But she's sweet with the kids. She loves Badani. You know what I mean? And I think.
Loves Badani.
Yeah,
loves.
Yeah. If they get divorced, I'm just kidding.
She's still single.
Yeah, it's in that small amount. I feel like your mom has given you what you wanted from your birth or adopted mom.
Yeah, in a way, like she does tell me she's proud of me and like.
You're doing great.
You're doing great. You're doing great. Keep up the good work. Yeah.
You could looking at her, you can see the pain in her. Like that's why I'm like, there's so much to say, and I wish that maybe one day she'll give you, maybe, we don't know, But as far as the adopted mom, I don't know that.
Oh no.
That's just toxic.
You could do an interview with her if you want.
Oh no, I don't think you guys want to hear it. No, I don't.
I don't know. It's good to see the. I would love to hear like her. I mean, from her perspective, I think she thinks she did the best she could.
Yeah. And I actually would want to hear it.
And that's what she said. Like she really feels like she did the best she could. And I think because she's like bipolar, has these mental disorders. I think she does feel like that. She doesn't see the other side. She doesn't see what she inflicted upon us. But I think she did.
And if that's how she grew up, it's what she knows. And I think a lot of times it's just a pattern. The same way with mom, Deanna mom, how she's like, I didn't give you guys any type of emotional or like she wasn't present with us because that's not how she was raised, you know? So, no, it actually would be interesting, but I don't know if you'd want to be in the room.
I'm not going to be in the room. You and her can do it.
So, with everything that you've faced and gone through, what's your final view on adoption? Now, there's knowing all that you know, right? So, would you choose to be adopted again?
It's a hard question to answer because I don't know.
Being a mother, would you adopt? So there's two.
I couldn't adopt.
Okay.
I know that of myself. I think you either know you can or you can't, and I think that's where it gets murky. Is people because I know emotionally I would have to give this child everything I give my kids. You don't want this child to feel less than your own kids when they are your kid. And I know I feel like I have enough love that I could, but within myself I don't know that I could.
Yeah.
And so I think there's people I don't think they think of it on the emotional side. Some of them, I think they're thinking of it on more financial side. Like we're helping this child have a better life because we can provide things that maybe they can't have. But it's so much more than that because I remember asking my brothers, my birth brothers, we played in a fantasy basketball league together because we were all very much into sports, and I asked them like, do you think it's more important to provide financially or emotionally for your kids? Like which one would you prefer like growing up? And they're like, 100% emotionally.
Oh, they said that? Oh wow.
And that's what their mom was for them. They're super close to their mom, and it's the emotional support. And I feel like that's what, like you can go through certain things. If you have that love at home, even doesn't matter the environment you live in outside your door. Because my family grew up in a poor area. There were drugs. There were a lot of things, and they had that in their house, like their mom. And so, to me, I wish I had that. Yeah. I am grateful for what my parents did provide me because of the way I was raised. I have a very strong work ethic, and like there's a lot of things that my adopted mom instilled in me that are great things. Yeah. There's a lot of trauma. Yeah. that isn't so great, but
and with the trauma, it's things that you are like, now you want to be the opposite. So
yeah, it's more emotional, but I think there are a lot of good things. So I don't know that I couldn't say either way if I would. I mean, I wouldn't want to go back now, obviously, because of where I'm at now. But it's hard to be like, no, I didn't want that emotional connection. Yeah. That's the only thing. If I could go back and have that,
it would be
totally different. But that's the only, I wouldn't want to go back. And I love my siblings. Like, my adopted siblings, like, we're super close. And I would never want to change the relationship I have with them. And the relationship I have with them is because we grew up in that trauma together.
It's how everything lines up, because you have this experience, these things happen. Yeah, and now it's...
Exactly. So I don't know. Yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's a fair answer.
Yeah. I just think it's how you grew up. Because, I mean, a lot of kids are adopted into great homes with great parents that, you know, treat them their own. You know, and if my parents had been that way, I'm a different person, maybe.
100%.
Maybe for better or worse.
No, I'm saying. To other kids who maybe in your be dealing with things that you went through, like what advice or maybe a parent that's watching that wants to do better. I don't know. What's some advice you have?
If they have adopted a child, I'd say if you've adopted a child, just make sure you're emotionally available. Make sure you treat them like you treat your biological kids, because
if you treat them good.
If you if you treat them good.
Yeah.
But I think every child, I mean, for adopted kids, you already experienced abandonment.
Yep.
And you'll always feel that. And so you don't want to make them feel that way again, make them feel that abandonment again. So for the parents, like, just be there, be good parents. Like, if you've chosen to adopt this child, or if you're looking to adopt for the right reasons. Yeah. Because you can give love, not because you give money. Yeah. But because you can love this child or person.
Yeah.
Animal.
Everyone.
And then for kids,
this too shall pass.
It doesn't. You can either, and this is what I always tell my siblings, because some of them struggle with drugs, with other things, because they're trying to deal with the trauma. And I tell them, like, you can either let it define who you are, and let it take over your life, or you can make it turn your life into something great. Yeah. Like, use it to fuel a different part of your life. And that's what I've done. It's just, I don't want that, and I don't want it to define who I am. And I want a better life, and I want my kids to have a better life, so I have to use it as motivation to do better. Exactly. Yeah. And you just have to get through it. Yeah. And that's the hardest thing, because there's so many times I wanted it to be done. Yeah, I remember thinking about suicide and wanting to jump off. We had like this stairwell, wanting to like
having the same story.
The same suicide story. But it's, I mean, you just have to. And I had my siblings there. Like, Kathy really was everything. Yeah. You know, and I think you just need one person. One person to live for. If it's not yourself, there's someone, you know, and reach out. Like, you need to start like something where people can reach out, you know, and have someone to help them, because I wish there was a community, like a group, like, we've all been adopted. Yeah. Because adopted people, I think that's why most of your adopted siblings have married adopted siblings, because you both have that same like, it's a connection that it's different, and so that someone might not understand if they weren't adopted or grew up in a perfect household. Because
no, you're absolutely right about. I think you just need one person, and I feel like if you're in a situation where you still don't feel like you have one person, reach out. You know, like, if you ever watch these episodes and you feel like you connect with somebody, then let's use this platform because it sucks to be in that position where you feel like you're the only one and you're so misunderstood. Like, it was so, it's hard. And I think when you're a kid going through trauma, you don't understand trauma, and you don't know why you're the way you are, so it's almost like you think you're crazy or you think there's something wrong with you. Like, you believe these lies that people are telling you, or that these experiences you faced or make you feel, you know. So I think, like, yeah, because it takes time. It takes like time to grow and heal, and then you look back and you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That it's not me, it was that person, you know, and
yeah, doesn't make it easier.
No, absolutely not. It takes a long time to be able to even talk about it, you know. It's different stages, and so but it's just with time. And I think I love what you said. I think having just one person, and because when you really want to give up, just that one person to pull you back, I think is very important. So I love that.
Someone to talk to, just someone that understands on a deeper level, because not everyone's going to understand.
No,
they're not going to understand the pain, the struggle. So just having one person. That's why when we were in Utah, I always was looking for those little black kids that were adopted to white families. I'm like, okay. Yeah. We look cute. See if you look right, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I remember Abby had one little friend, and she was black, and her parents were white. And I always, like, okay, and try to get to know them. They're really good parents, really good people. You know, it's just like, for us as adopted kids, we need to look out for those.
Yeah, 100%.
Those kids, and because, I mean, obviously you can't see everything, and you can't, I mean, my you know, all my friends, no one would know that my mom was that way. Like, you know, usually these people are really good at hiding who they are into the world and what they do behind closed doors. Yeah. So, just.
And for some reason, I just feel like in the last year, it's the year of the adoption stories where people are, there's just something inside of us that people are just really starting to speak the truth. And I think a lot of times people, I know I didn't want to share my story because I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. I have a lot of siblings, even my mom, and that's why I did the first episode with Mom, because I'm just like, I don't want to, this is what happened, I don't want to hurt your feelings, you know. And it's like this thing the same way, sometimes the people that have caused the most pain are the ones that we're worried about. Yeah, you know? And
exactly.
Like we're trying to protect
them.
And it's interesting how that works. But anyways, I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
I love you.
Love you.
And you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you guys have any questions, if you guys want follow up, anything with Chrissy, let us know. And again, thank you again.